The Gospels aren't the only ones that are reliable accounts of the life of Jesus. There are many other non-Christian descriptions of Jesus from the late 1st to 5th century. Welcome back to another FTD Facts episode. My name is Leroy Kenton, and today we're going to be looking at 10 of the biggest evidences of Jesus outside of the Bible. Now, we're going to be looking at some non-Christian pagan accounts as well as some non-Christian Jewish accounts. So let's get started with this episode and look into the existence of Jesus outside of the Bible. At number 10, we have Thallus, 52 AD. Thallus is one of the oldest secular writers who mentioned Jesus in his writings. He is so ancient that his work doesn't exist anymore. But you see, Julius Africanus quoted his writing where he tried to explain away the darkness occurring at Jesus' crucifixion. In his quote, he described that Thallus explained how the world was surrounded by a fearful darkness, as well as a massive earthquake happened during Jesus' crucifixion. From Thallus' available work, we can conclude that Jesus lived, he was crucified, and that there was an earthquake and darkness at the point of his crucifixion. Number 9 is Tacitus, 56 to 120 AD. Cornelius Tacitus was a well-known ancient historian known for his analysis and examination of historical documents, and he explained the existence of Jesus in his Annals of 116 AD. Tacitus described Emperor Nero's response to the Great Fire in Rome and Nero's claim that the Christians were to blame for it. According to him, Jesus lived in Judea, he was crucified under Pontius Pilate, and he had followers who were persecuted for their faith in him. Moving on to number 8, we have Mara bar Serapion, 70 AD. After 70 AD, a Syrian philosopher named Mara bar Serapion wrote for his son where he compared the life and persecution of Jesus with that of other philosophers who were persecuted for their ideas. Mara bar Serapion called him the wise king, and he described how Jews murdered their wise king, and after which their kingdom was abolished. He has also said that God avenged those men, and according to Mara bar Serapion's work, Jesus was a wise and influential man who died for his beliefs. The Jewish leadership was also somehow responsible for Jesus' death, and Jesus' followers adopted his beliefs and lived their lives accordingly. The next evidence comes from Phlegon, 80 to 140 AD. Like Thallus, Julius Africanus also mentioned a historian named Phlegon, who wrote a chronicle of history around 140 AD. Phlegon also focused on the darkness surrounding Jesus' crucifixion, and according to Phlegon, Jesus had the ability to predict the future pretty accurately, and he was crucified under the reign of Tiberius Caesar. He also says that Jesus showed his wounds after he was resurrected to people that he came in contact with. Next up at number 6, we have Pliny the Younger, 61 to 113 AD. The early Christians were also described in the early non-Christian history. Pliny the Younger, in a letter to the Roman Emperor Trajan, he described the lifestyles of early Christians. Pliny explained how the Christians sang a hymn to Jesus Christ as a god in alternate verses and took an oath to refrain from all sorts of evil deeds. The early description of the first Christians documents several things, like the first Christians believed Jesus was God and they upheld a high moral code, as well as early followers met regularly to worship Jesus. Number 5 leads us to Lucian of Samosata, 115 to 200 AD. Lucian was a Greek satirist who spoke sarcastically of Jesus and Christians, but in the process he actually affirmed that they were real people and never referred to them as fictional characters or anything like that. Lucian, he explained how the Christians worshipped a man who introduced their novel rites and was crucified on this account. According to his work, we can conclude that Jesus taught about repentance and the family of God. Those teachings were then quickly adopted by Jesus' followers. Moving on now to number 4, we have Celsus, 175 AD. Celsus was also quite antagonistic to the claims of the Gospels in the Bible, but in his criticism, he unknowingly affirmed and reinforced the biblical authors and their content. So Celsus, he confirmed that Jesus was able to perform miracles. According to Celsus's writings, Jesus had an earthly father who was a carpenter, and he possessed unusual magical powers, and also he says that Jesus claimed to be God. Celsus's writings is extensive, and he alluded to 80 different biblical quotes, and this would of course confirm their early appearance in history. Josephus comes up next at number 3, 37 to 101 AD. Coming to the ancient hostile Jewish sources, Josephus is a Jewish source, right? And Josephus wrote in detail about Jesus in his Antiquities of the Jews in 93 AD. Under the rule of Roman Emperor Vespasian, Josephus was allowed to write a history of the Jews where he wrote about Jesus as a wise man and the Messiah. There are many ancient versions of Josephus's writings, but we can conclude that from them that Jesus lived in Palestine, the area known as Palestine, and he was a wise man, and he was also a teacher. He did amazing things, and he was accused by the Jews and crucified under Pilate, and had followers who were then called Christians. In the number 2 spot, we have Jewish Talmud, 400 to 700 AD. In the Talmudic writing, Jesus was referred to as Balaam ben Stada, or a certain one. And according to the Talmudic passages, Jesus practiced magic and he led Israel astray. Jesus was stoned and hanged because he practiced sorcery and he enticed Israel to go astray, and no one came in his favor to plead, so he was hanged. Now, Jewish Talmud states that Jesus had magical powers, he led the Jews away from their beliefs, he had disciples who were martyred for their faith, and was executed on the day before Passover. Yeah, sounds very much like the accounts that were recorded in the Bible, just from a little bit of a different perspective though. And finally, in at the number 1 spot, we have the Toldat Yeshu, 1000 AD. The Toldat Yeshu is a medieval Jewish retelling of the life of Jesus that is completely anti-Christian. The Toldat Yeshu attempts to explain away the miracles of Jesus and to deny the virgin birth. So the text of the Toldat Yeshu does confirm many elements of the New Testament writings, like Jesus claiming to be the Messiah and Jesus healing those who had disabilities. He also said that Isaiah foretold of his life, and also that he was worshipped as God, and he was arrested by the Jews, beaten with rods, given vinegar to drink, wore a crown of thorns, rode into Jerusalem on a donkey, and he was betrayed by a man named Judas Iscarioto, which is Judas Iscariot in English, and he had followers who claimed that he was resurrected from the grave and ascended into heaven. So we can see that many elements of the biblical record are confirmed by these accounts, in spite of the fact that they were written against Jesus and his followers. So that brings us to the end of this episode, guys. Let me know down below in the comments section, do you believe in the existence of Jesus? And if so, what about the existence of Jesus do you believe? Let me know down below. Also, don't forget to leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it. And if this is your first time here to the FTD Facts channel, go ahead and subscribe and ring the bell. That way you will never miss any of our daily uploads. Thanks for hanging out with me in this one, guys, and I'll catch you in the next episode.